If you're listening to this, there's a good chance you work within the real estate investing industry. There's another good chance that you would like to increase the sales of your products or services. Well, you're in the right place. United States Real Estate Investor is a platform you need to place your brand directly in front of your target audience. With our focused, growing audience of real estate investing beginners, enthusiasts, and seasoned professionals, you can continually reach our captivated viewers and listeners with ease. To learn more or to get started today, just visit UnitedStatesRealEstateInvestor.com/advertising. That's UnitedStatesRealEstateInvestor.com/advertising. Get ready to increase your brand awareness and your bottom line. Attract clients with content.
Universe. Media. Network. 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 Network.
Welcome to This Month in Real Estate Investing, where we help you navigate the news. I'm your host, James Brown, and in this episode, we're going to be breaking down a variety of real estate investing news items, including Trump targets Wall Street housing, Zillow faces new steering lawsuit, and homebuyers backing out at record pace. Don't forget, if you're watching live on YouTube, you can share your thoughts and questions during the show. Let's start the show. All right, welcome back. Our guests today are Sally. You're gonna have to tell me how you say your last name. I didn't check first.
It's a hard G. Gimmon.
Gimmon, Sally Gimmon. Jamie, tell me say how you say your name.
Finnengratzer.
Okay, that was my guess. And Kate Trevor Thompson, who has been a guest on our show before.
Awesome.
Welcome, guys. In that order, starting with Sally. Why don't you tell people, your background in investing, what you're excited about?
Well, thank you for having me on the show, James. My name is Sally Gimmon. I became a real estate investor in late 2018 when my mom got sick in Charlotte, North Carolina. They were from Goodyear, Arizona. She was in the hospital 15 months. In 2019, with my mentor, I wholesaled 7 bank-owned properties nationwide. I was a rock star in my Phoenix real estate group, paid off all my debt, and never looked back. I now moved to North Carolina. I do what is called upset bids here in North Carolina, a very special rule. I found out when I bought a bank-owned reverse mortgage that was going to go to auction after COVID restrictions got lifted. You have to know which county you're in, if it's 10 business days or 10 calendar days. When I came out Christmas of 2021, I won 3 upset bids and made $89,000. My brother's like, "Did you rob a bank?" So I love real estate investing.
Awesome. Jamie.
Yes, thanks for having me on. A little bit about my background. I'm an enrolled agent, certified and licensed by the IRS. I help a lot of real estate investors with taxes, tax planning, and accounting. I'm also a real estate investor. I grew up in Virginia. Now I live in Houston. And my ex-husband was Navy. So pretty much everywhere that we moved, we bought a property. And when we had to move 3 years later, we turned it into a rental. And since then, I've been in the investing game. I speak and have a ton of clients in real estate in the Texas market as well as nationwide, and it's kind of more of my passion. Accounting and taxes for real estate tends to be a hard concept for a lot of accountants to grasp. We see changes that we have to make to past returns all the time, and advice that we can give for real estate investors in terms of putting more money and saving more money in their pockets instead of the IRS.
Fantastic. Trevor.
Awesome. So I'm Trevor. I'm based in Austin, Texas now, and I was always interested in real estate, but I was terrified of toilets, tenants, and trash. And then I thought I had to be a millionaire to invest in commercial real estate. And then I found out about syndication 7.5 years ago. And since then, I've been a passive investor in 20 syndications, a deal sponsor in 16. When I found out that secret that you could be a part owner in commercial real estate, I was hooked, and I'm on a mission to help 100,000 people learn how to passively invest in commercial real estate.
Fantastic. Well, let's jump into the news from Real Estate News. Big changes could be coming to real estate in 2026. Real estate heads into 2026 with legal uncertainty, shifting MLS power, and affordability that's still unresolved. Nothing's broke, but a lot could change depending on lawsuits, policy, and consumer behavior. That's my AI introduction I just came up with. There's a lot to dive into here. I don't know. For you guys, what's the biggest thing you think that could change this year that would affect you? Anybody?
I've wholesaled 28 properties, and I have wholesaled to quite a few large networks. And here in North Carolina, every single real estate deal must have an attorney on it. It's very frustrating. And, when I came from Phoenix, we didn't have to work with an attorney, and it was much, much easier to work with things. So I don't know if the government should get involved, because real estate investing should be as easy as possible. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, so for me, I think in my space, some of the things that are going to really help are obviously interest rates coming down, because obviously when interest rates went crazy, it put a lot of pressure on the real estate market. Also, when interest rates were super low, they really started building a lot of apartment complexes. And in 26, new build is down 76%, which means there won't be a lot of new multifamily inventory coming online, because it takes them about 3 years to get built up. So I think that will create much more demand for apartments, and I'm super bullish.
Yeah. Yeah, no, like here in Denver, we've had a lot of apartments being built, and rents are coming down because we've just, we've got too many apartments. Every market's different, right? But definitely here they're having to give incentives, like, first 2 months free, that kind of thing. But it'll come back around, So, yeah. Jamie, did you have any?
There is a tax saving things right now that if you're in, I forget what it's called, but it's going to expire December 31st of 2016. So like a Corpus Christi, people who invested there, they get to save taxes. After that, let's say they built a hotel, or they built, vacation homes or something like that. After that, they're going to have to start paying taxes, and there should be a humongous shift when this special tax break expires in a few months.
Is that the Qualified Opportunity Zone funds, or what was that?
Yes, thank you for. Didn't have the name. I'm sorry.
So it's similar here in Houston with, the growth that's happening in Texas just in and of itself. And we're seeing apartments and kind of townhome type things being built where everything's very cookie cutter and looks the same. So that's an issue that we're seeing here. And then the amount of people that it brings in and the infrastructure not really being able to handle it in the outer Houston areas. So that's a challenge that we're currently having.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I don't know a whole lot about the interest rates and how that's what affects that, but everything I'm hearing from the experts, it may come down a little bit, but it's interesting. So many people, like buyers, are all waiting, especially residential, right? They're all waiting for those rates to come down, just on the fence. I'm like, guys, it's a teeter-totter. Like, if your rates come down, guess what goes up with the prices are going up, right? So it's like,
no matter what real estate market you're in, there's always a way to do things. it wasn't my deal, but when the whole housing market crashed in 2018, one of my clients got 7 homes in Phoenix for $5,000 or less. He has held on to them ever since then and rents them out. And I'm like, why wasn't I doing that in 2018? Because our market in Phoenix people were walking away with every window open and every door open because they lost everything.
Yeah, yeah. I'm starting to see a lot of short sales as I'm a licensed realtor. And so I'm trying to help people through that process. And it's sad to see this happening again, but I'm here to help them. And when you look at it from the investor side, it's like, well, we've got some opportunity. And it's unfortunate somebody's got to lose in a situation like that, but it could be life-changing if you're in a good position and take advantage of it, not miss out like you're talking about.
We're seeing that as well here, not so much, I mean, short sales obviously, but the bank-owned auctions as well. There are a ton of houses in our area specifically that are bank-owned that were up for foreclosure, and now they're going to auction where the bank's just trying to get back their loan money so that they become whole again. So you can get some pretty good deals out there with that. It's still kind of expensive here in the Houston area, but it's still a good deal if you're able to do it.
And then for ourselves, one of the things I've seen, because I do a lot of multifamily investing, and the delta between what an average rent and an average mortgage has never been greater. So it now is, this is an America-wide statistic, average rent is $1,880. Average mortgage is $3,066. So that's a delta of almost $1,200. And then another huge delta, the last 10 years, 48% of Americans qualified for a mortgage. That is now down to 28%. So what does that mean? That means that, first of all, they're just probably maybe never going to afford a home. And then if they can, only 30% of Americans now will qualify. And then it used to be the average first-time home buyer was 30 years old. Now they're 40 years old. So either you're living with mom and dad till you're 40, or you're moving into a multifamily property because there's just the options are gone. And a lot of that's happened. Now, there are still reasonable places to live. This is America-wide, so it takes into account, high prices, low prices. This is an average delta, but it's staggering the difference. And a lot of folks, unfortunately, have just been priced out of home ownership until something dramatically changes.
Another statistic, not homeowners, but car loans right now are over, on average, $750 per month. And there's a dealership here in North Carolina that's offering an 8-year car loan. I mean, I personally keep a car for a long time. My 9-year-old car got totaled in an accident, but most people are switching out their cars within 3 years. So it's going to be an ugly cycle. I'm afraid for average Americans, if that makes sense.
We're going to see a lot more new car. Well, I think we are, the new car purchases and loans on those, because now with the new OBBB Act, you've got interest expense on final production of America vehicles. If the final production happened here on a brand new vehicle, your loan interest could be deductible on your taxes. So I think we're going to see a lot more, people just going out there to get that tax deduction, even if it doesn't make sense for them.
Yeah. Any other comments on this? I know we could go so many directions, like what's coming 2026, and we can.
Well, just in Illinois, they just changed last year. They changed the rule. If you want to wholesale, you must have your real estate license. I think many more states are going to look at that. Thinking, yeah. I don't want to. I personally do wholesale a lot, and there's some not very respectable people in the field who, some of the articles we're going to talk about, there's some situations there that I know people who have been affected by.
And obviously population migration has been a big topic, right? People moving out of California, people moving out of New York State. I live in Texas, Sally lives in North Carolina. and Florida is the other one where so many people are migrating and moving. But another huge factor, when COVID came, we all could live anywhere because we were working at home, and now they're calling all those people back to the office. So if you decided you were going to make a life choice and not live in an urban area or move to a more reasonable place, you may be now forced to go back or change employment. So again, there's probably never been as much movement of bodies, and not just neighborhoods or cities, but states having to move for opportunities or for cost of living. So that has really shaken things up a bit. And it always makes some winners and losers, which obviously goes to show that real estate is really micro to every area. I mean, even within cities, it changes dramatically. But those two big shifts have made a lot of things just have mixed up the pot a lot.
Well, one of the reasons I have my townhouse in Phoenix, Clarendon and 44th Street, as a seller financing house, if you know, 50,000 people per month are moving to Maricopa County. Water is an issue. North of Scottsdale is a town called Cave Creek that has no water. Scottsdale actually trucks water into Cave Creek. South Korean chip manufacturing plant is building a massive chip manufacturing plant there. I went to the city council meeting, Phoenix City Council meeting, and they voted to give the chip manufacturing plant 6.5 million gallons of water per day. I lived in my townhouse for 14 years, and the water pressure was getting lower and lower and lower each time. I put my house up on the market in March of 2022. In 3 days, I had 6 different offers. I sold it for $3,000 higher than the going rate. People from California bought it. I didn't disclose about the water situation, but again, you've got to figure out problems. Here in North Carolina, they're building all these houses, and it's one lane going each way, and traffic is miserable.
I've seen that plant they're building up there north of Cave Creek, right? Yeah, that's it's a desert. It's like you need water, and when you're pulling 6 million gallons a day, you said
6.5 million gallons a day. The Colorado River, which is Lake Mead, this was, I want to say, January 2024. They stopped giving water to Pinal County, which is south of Maricopa County, and all kinds of farms shut down. What they did was they built thousands of houses there, and I'm like, where are you going to get water? And they're stick houses. They're not cement brick houses. You have one fire, you could burn down 5 houses so quickly.
Yeah, I've got a friend that's in the water community, I guess, with legislators and developers and stuff, and she said it is just a nightmare. Like the stories she tells, she just gets so upset because it's super frustrating. People not seeing the big picture. I mean, we're humans. We need water. Like if it's all going to a chip manufacturing plant.
We need schools. We need, we haven't discussed what's happened in Los Angeles. 9,000 houses burned down, and they're not even building them again. I have a client who lost their personal home, and their 3 they do the BRRRR strategy. So they buy, rehab, resell. They still have to pay the mortgages on those houses, and they don't have anybody in those houses. And they're like, we're suffering. They've got 2 other properties, but people are suffering all over the country.
Yep. Yeah. Well, let's keep things moving. We'll go to our next article. Fort Worth real estate couple pleads guilty to nearly $5 million in fraud from Culture Map Fort Worth. A Texas couple says they were posing as a design build firm and took millions from homeowners, left dozens of projects unfinished. So it sounds like they get things started and then just bail and go get more money and almost like a Ponzi scheme. But they are up for, let me see, it was the guy, I think he's up for 20 years in prison. and his wife is up for 5. So, but they were definitely misrepresenting it. Apparently, the husband was posing as an architect. He's not an architect, but he's kind of acting like it. So,
unfortunately, I hear that a lot because a lot of our clients are real estate, right? So we have a lot of clients that do flips or rehabs and do the burst strategy, and you see so many where they've lost money because they hire these contractors, and the contractors will start the work just like this couple did, and then they run out of money, or they use the money elsewhere, and then they go on to the next house or the next person and try to get their 50% up front there, and then they do the same thing over and over, and we see that way too often. And so that's where it comes in, kind of more the education side of it, and making sure that we're doing our due diligence on the contractors. And even that's hard, because you could have a contractor that you worked with for 2 or 3 times and they were great, and then that next time this happens. So it's very hard trusting people out there in the process. And it's great that they're that they caught this couple, and that they're setting an example out of them.
Yeah, that's a pretty common theme with contractors. Like, they're good for a year or two, and then you're like, oh, everything's good, I found my guys. And then, oh, they kind of start shifting, which is unfortunate.
Or they see that, what you're doing out there and how you're making money in it and being profitable, and they go, oh, I can do this. And they really can't.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
just for me personally.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, Trevor.
So this is why I think it's super important for people to be part of networks or listen to different things like this show, or just be educated. Like, again, Jamie and I are part of a network. And when we have bad actors in that network, we basically have a, do not use list, and it really can help you out. So again, if you're looking to do things, you really want to make sure that you're checking the references, you're checking with people, you're doing things. Unfortunately, in today's society, fraud is everywhere. And if you don't educate yourself, if you don't connect with people that can help you, you just run a huge risk that something like this can happen to you.
Personally, the gentleman who ran my real estate group, he was my mentor, he was my friend, and he was my business partner. I invested with him, and he actually posted on Facebook how much he made on the property we invested in. This was January 12th, 2021. I sent him a simple text message going, what happened to our 50-50 agreement? I'm missing $5,000 if this is how much you actually made. We get on a scheduled Zoom the next day, and Mr. Hyde showed up. He's like, you don't trust me. You're calling me a liar. You're calling me a thief. I'm like, just give me the numbers, because what you posted and what you told me are 2 separate things. I had done a mastermind in my real estate group in Phoenix for 18 months. He took it away and he kicked me out of the real estate group. I'm like, I'm the one that got cheated, not you. But I mean, I thought I knew him, and he was an actor. And then afterwards, I found out these crazy things he did with other people. I'm like, we all trusted him. And, I've been to his house. I ate at his dinner table. I know his family. And he can sleep at night. I don't know how he does that.
Yeah. I was just thinking back, a friend of mine had a bunch of work done on his house, his primary home. And I think he went through 3 or 4 different contractors, all screwed him. And such a nice guy too. It's terrible to see that happen, but he wasn't probably, like, if you're a GC and maybe you're making the payments, or you're the investor, you want to get, I forget, what's the term for it, when you basically have the contractor sign something saying, yes, I've done this work and you've paid me. So you kind of stair step it. So you're staying on top of it.
Lien release. You get a lien release.
Thank you, Trevor. Yes, the lien release.
Yeah. And again, be very cautious. Not large deposits up front. Pay as work gets done. Anybody who is a good contractor can carry a small balance. Even if you pay them weekly, where, hey, you're done this work, I'm going to give you the money. You're done this work, I'm going to give you the money.
Yeah. I know, like,
it personally has made me a little bit gun shy. I mean, there's a reason why I concentrate on wholesaling and my own personal investing, because I thought I could trust this person, and there's, to hear other people, 5 other people who had just as worse horror stories than I did, and we're all in the same real estate group. I'm like, you kept showing up. Why would you do that? And this article talks about how much money, millions of dollars, and you know, I don't know if you know about the Keating Five in Arizona, but I personally know families who lost their entire fortunes, and senior adult, people in their 70s had to move in with their 40 and 50-year-old children because they had to sell their home when Keating Five stole all the money.
Yeah, man. Like that gets into like, well, who's monitoring this stuff? What are those penalties, and are they stiff enough to make people hesitate to do this? Because I mean, every month we have articles like this where people are trying to take advantage of people. I don't know what the solution is, but it seems like
the gentleman who I'm speaking about, he still posts about all these deals he's doing, and I kiss the $5,000 doesn't sound like that much, but at the time it was the friendship and the mentoring that I lost, which I really grieve over. But he thinks he's done nothing wrong, and other people are trusting him. And if I try to make a comment on his Facebook post, he removes my comments. I mean, he's on top of things, and yeah, it just, how you've got to do your due diligence. You've got to cross your T's and dot your I's.
Yep, totally. Yeah, I've been using Forewarn as a realtor. We get access to using that so we can run checks on people. And I've had some people that they just don't show up because they're not real, right? They're scammers. I was going to say too, I've been involved in a couple syndications like what Trevor does, and we were general partners, and part of the process was doing background checks on everybody that was involved, raising money and whatnot. And the last one that we did, one of my partners, it got flagged, and it wasn't like a major thing, but it was still a flag. And so it's like, oh, you're out. Like we gotta do our due diligence, because that can come back and reflect on the whole group, right? So it's important. It's not the easy or cheap to do some of these things, but when you're looking at losing big money, you got to do it.
And who you do business with and who you invest with is paramount. It is, I don't matter what you say, this is a people business still, and you want to make sure you're part of a network, part of a group, part of connecting with people, and just make sure that you do your due diligence before doing anything. And even if you do, something still can go wrong. But when you find out something goes wrong, your responsibility is to at least tell your network to stay away from that particular person. I don't go in and post on Facebook negative things. I say I would not invest with them. I would not do business with them. And I don't get into the details because when somebody tells you that and they're your friend, believe them. Because people don't say it.
That's what I would say. I'm like, when he posts something, I said I would not trust him as an investor, and he's on top of it and removes it. I'm like, I'm not playing this game. I don't have time to play the game with him anymore. And I've told enough people about my story. Hopefully other people are letting them know about it, because I've moved on.
Yeah.
And it's like Trevor said, that things can go wrong and things can go bad. And it's really about the individual's integrity and how they handle it, right? So I get investors all the time where I see, okay, well, they did great on some deals, right? And they go with that same syndicator or that same fund investor. And the next, they may have done 5 where they made a lot of money. And then the next one, because, interest rates were so high and they couldn't refinance or things like that, then that deal goes bad. And it's really about how that lead handles it, right? Obviously, they don't want to lose money, but I've seen some that are out there, posting on social media, driving Rolls Royces, right? And all their investors haven't been paid for 2 years, and they're living in a multi-million-dollar home. And then I see others where the investment's gone bad and they have personally taken their funds and made the investors whole. They didn't give them the earnings, but they at least made them whole. So it's really about, knowing, being able to find those that have the integrity that even when things go bad, they're still going to try their best to make it right.
Yep. Yeah, there's a lot of kind of startup syndicators. Trevor, I'm sure you're well aware of the competition, I guess. And there's so many people that just don't really understand what they're doing and getting into these big deals, losing money for people, having to do lots of capital calls when the rates went up. Like it's gotten kind of nasty. I know it's really important to, like when we've raised capital, we only talk to operators that had done at least 5 deals full cycle where it went through either refinanced or sold, because a track record and that experience says a lot, but you get these newbies coming in, they got a spreadsheet from a guru and they think they can figure it out. And there's a lot of smart people getting into it, trying it, but experience makes a big difference. So,
well, they get overwhelmed and they think a rehab on an apartment may take so much, right? And then once they get into it and they start it, they get bad contractors or whatever, and it costs them so much more, and the tenancy goes down, or they don't have great property managers, and it goes bad fast.
Yeah, a lot of moving parts. Well, hey, let's go to our next article from the National Association of Realtors. 2026 Real Estate Outlook. What leading housing economists are watching. It says economists expect a slow rebound in sales as rates ease and inventory improves, but supply remains the big constraint. Regional differences in demographics will matter more than national averages. How do you guys feel?
So,
think we're going to have a slow improvement?
Yeah. So here in Houston, I mean, it's a total sellers or buyers market right now. So there is so much inventory that it's hard to sell your house here for what it's actually worth. And the good thing is, I mean, it's good and bad, right? Depending on what side you're on. But we're seeing a big market correction here because the prices were so high and overinflated for so long, for 3 or 4 years, that it was just crazy. And everybody got used to those low interest COVID interest rates, right? So people are scared of those new interest rates that are really what they were before, pre-COVID. So here we're seeing a ton of inventory, and it's sitting on the market for 60, 90 or plus days, where it should actually sell at, where previously it would sit on the market for 1 or 2 days and you'd have bids above the asking price. So we're seeing the correction here, but it's also kind of hurting the sellers that need to sell.
Yeah, same here, Denver. Like we go up and down. It's not like the Midwest where it's just So it was nice being a realtor during COVID. Like, sell stuff in a day. Now it's like 45 days. That's kind of our average now. Sally,
one of my clients, I found him an upset bid, a tax lien 90 miles from Charlotte in Anson County, one of the poorest counties in North Carolina. It was a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house, brick house on 16 acres. We went to the county council and they were allowing us to split the acreage. So what we're building on it is a duplex that's handicap access. And we were going to build 16 acres, so it's going to be 32 of these, actually 16 of these duplexes, 32 of these duplexes. We had planned to sell the first two to finance everything else. There's such a need for housing in North Carolina, especially handicap housing. We didn't have to sell them, and we have now sold 18 of the pre-built houses, and the county, comes out and checks on everything. My client, who makes a lot of money from network marketing company, he's just like, this is the easiest real estate deal I've ever done. The general contractor who lives in Charlotte's like, how am I going to get people to build this? In Anson County, the unemployment's so high, he can hire all the people he needs. And I mean, I thought we were going to do a good deal on this. I didn't expect it to be such an amazing deal. And I am only making 1% off of the deal, but my client's making a heck of a lot of money on that.
Yeah.
Yes. So for me, I hate to say that all of your guys' bad news is my good news, but I kind of alluded to it earlier. All of the stress on the home market has just put apartments, which is what I mostly do, in such huge demand. It creates a very affordable option. And again, the prices are realigning, right? Apartment prices went up. We've reset about 20%. So they're back to what I'm going to call realistic numbers. Last year you still couldn't buy anything. We've already closed on 3 properties this year because people are in a position where they have to sell. They're under pressure. Their loan is maturing or other reasons that are happening. So kind of the stress on the single family space is really helping my space. And I think it's going to really help us rebound in the multifamily market.
And
Wow.
I think too, I wonder if the newer generation isn't wanting the home buyer process, right? I think that they don't want the responsibility of it, and the maintenance, and apartments are so much easier.
Yeah, flexibility, that's a huge thing. Yeah. And
My last
those
5
numbers.
bids I've turned into seller financing, and every seller financing is a couple from Long Island moving down to North Carolina, and they have something on their credit report where they can't get into an apartment, or they can't get a mortgage for it. So my agreement is $20,000 down, a 2-year plan, and my first one's coming up in May, and they've built their credit up again, and they want to keep the house because their kids are in the school district. The husband has a job in the area. The wife's a digital marketer, and they were, I don't know what they were doing up in Long Island. They were renting up there, but they couldn't get anything down here in North Carolina. And I think, yes, single family home. There's not enough low income single family homes being built anywhere in the United States at this time.
No, it's such a challenge. Even, well, we'll talk about it a little later in another article. Like, government incentives can help a little bit, but it's just not a good play for most developers. Like, just the numbers don't work. So if they're not really incentivized to do that, like you were talking about opportunity zones, Jamie, like there's some serious things going on there, getting their tax breaks and stuff, but it's still a challenge that is not being addressed and giving us enough affordable housing. So
Yeah, I have a client here in Houston that worked for one, like D.R. Horton, or one of the big home builders, and then kind of went out as his own and did really, really good for 2-3 years and was crushing it. But he was building affordable housing here in Houston. So it was, smaller houses, 12 to 1,500 square feet. And he had this, set model of, these are the, finishes we're going to use. You don't get a choice as the homeowner. It is what it is. It's like 3 different plans, and this is what we're doing. Small lots, and that was working really well until things started to change. Interest rates went up, and now that they built so many so fast, thinking they'd be able to sell them, and now they're kind of hurting. But there is that. People are out there trying, and they see the need for it. And there was, I can't remember what the credit was, but they did get a pretty large credit for doing the affordable housing. But we definitely need more of it, because the housing, especially here in Houston, luckily we have the market correction now, but it's just way overpriced.
Yeah, we were looking into a build to rent company. They were looking to raise funds. They'd done one project. I think it was about 60 homes in San Antonio area. They were looking to build, just rinse and repeat, do the same thing with another one. That's definitely, we'll talk about that more in another article, but they had, I think, 3 different models to choose from, just smaller footprints, but nice. And people may want the big McMansion, but they can't afford it, right? So giving these options it's the key. So I don't know. The build to rent, it's just creating more of a nation of renters, but it's I don't know where to go with that. Let's go to our next article from Culture Map Fort Worth again. San Diego man, maybe might be a mistake. San Diego man accused of running multi-million-dollar investment fraud scheme. Federal prosecutors say an investor promised huge real estate returns, raised millions, and paid back only a fraction. Many victims kept waiting while taking on personal debt. So he was talking like 25% returns. What do you guys think about that when you hear people promising 25% returns? What's your reaction?
If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Yes. And unfortunately, it's mostly elderly people who are trying to make money on that, and they're losing thousands and thousands of dollars. And I mean, again, I don't know how people sleep at night, but you have to do your due diligence. It's the number one thing. If you've got to talk to people, you've got to make sure the person. I don't know how you can make sure someone's trustworthy, but if you do your due diligence and a red flag jumps up, pay attention.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always say my mama told me if it's too good to be true, it probably is, kind of. But again, anytime somebody promises better than normal average, be suspicious. I mean, unless you're really inside of that deal. I get set tons of deals, right? Our goal is to double your money in 5 years. When I get people saying they're going to triple my money in 3 years, I just hit the delete button. Now, have I tripled my money in 3 years? I have. I had a deal that did phenomenal. They promised double in 5, and they actually tripled in 20 months. Loved it. I want a few more of those, please. But, you just don't believe the hype. Go for certainty, balance, people things that you understand.
Yep.
Time is your friend in real estate.
True.
Yeah, and don't put all of your, eggs in one basket. Like Sally was saying, unfortunately, we see a lot of retired people that could get convinced of using their self-directed putting their IRAs into a self-directed and then investing using those, and they've worked their whole life, to be able to retire, and then they invest in something and they lose a good bulk of their retirement funds in an investment like this that, like you say, is promising, the moon and not getting it, and they're losing everything, which is horrible. Like she said, I don't know how they sleep at night, because it's just, it's horrible.
Yeah. I helped a friend, introduced him to a syndicator that's basically based out of Colorado, but it was a deal in Panama City, Florida. And I hadn't worked with them, but I'd gone through their syndication boot camp, so I kind of understood that they were legit operators, and they had this deal in Panama City. And so my friend was looking at it, really digging into the numbers, and I gave the thumbs up and sent his 40 grand was their minimum, wired it. And the next day, Hurricane Michael hit Panama City, Florida, and destroyed that whole town. My friend sent me pictures that the syndicator sent to him, where there was like parts of walls missing, like you could see into the apartments, and parts of the roofs missing. And I'm like, oh no, what did I get my friend into? But they were a good operator. They got crews in from an adjacent state and got it fixed up quicker than other complexes. Used insurance money. They got that all sorted out with the owner that was transferring over, and got it all fixed up, and actually were able to raise the rent, and they didn't cash flow for the first year while they were getting that, but within the second year, doubled his money. I was like, whew. I got my money.
One of the things going on in the Florida market right now is the surcharge of $65,000 per year for people in condos, and a lot of fixed income individuals can't afford it. So what people are doing, I won't go into Florida. I used to work for USA, and we pulled out in 2013, but they're doing Airbnb arbitrage in Miami, in Orlando, and other places where they're paying the mortgage for these people. They're leaving. They can charge out as weekly rates, 3-day weekend rates, things like this. There's some amazing deals happening in Miami, Orlando, Tampa, and other places that I've got several clients who are really into that.
Yeah. I was going to also mention, one of my mentors, might be familiar with John Burley. He's out of Phoenix. He's like, even if you can get 25% returns, which we get double digits all the time, but he's like, don't tell people that you can get that, because you might be over promising. Under promise, over deliver, right? Like that's another good rule of thumb. So, people might be expecting, like most syndications, correct me if I'm wrong, Trevor, the preferred returns 8-9%, something similar to stock market, right? But
we do 7 on ours, but yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Somewhere in that range where it's just, you're under promising, right? At 7.
Yeah.
But if you can get more, everybody's super happy, right? So, yeah. But yeah, when you hear 25%, really? Well, hey, let's take a break and learn from one of our partners.
If you are serious about real estate and tired of guessing, you need to know about Real Expert Talks. This is where real questions meet real experts. As a member, you get direct one-on-one access to experienced real estate professionals. No courses, no fluff. Just focused video calls where you ask your question, get the answer, and move forward fast. 5 minutes, 15, or a full deep dive. You choose. One conversation can save you months of mistakes. And if you're an expert, this platform was built for you. Real Expert Talks lets you monetize what you already know. Set your own rates, control your schedule, get paid to give advice, build your authority, and expand your reach without chasing clients or selling anything extra. No middlemen, no noise, just expertise, access, and action. If you want answers, sign up as a member. If you have answers, sign up as an expert. Go to Real Expert Talks and turn knowledge into momentum. RealExpertTalks.com.
All right. We're excited to roll out Real Expert Talks. That's going to be super cool. Well, let's get back to the news from Fox 5 Atlanta. South Fulton rental scam. Family loses $4,000 and faces eviction in squatter case. This is terrible. We see this come up, like in this case, a family was scammed by a fake broker that was using actual real locks, official looking documents, everything. They had it pretty dialed in, got this family into a rental that they didn't even own. And then the renters got caught not realizing it, and then they're facing charges for being squatters. That's a whole other story, or squatter issues. But anyway, what a mess. Have you guys run across any of that in your local markets or your dealings? Oh, you're muted, Sally. There you go. Oh, you muted again. You're muted again. Sally.
Still not.
There.
There it goes. Sorry. I deal with a lot of tax liens nationwide, and I find out someone's in the house thinking it's their house, but they don't have the rights to be there. And you can't be mean, but you have to say, here's the documentation. I don't know what's your documentation. And, I'm like, I'm giving you 30 days to move out because it's now my house. And I mean, this has happened to me in Ohio. It's happened to me in Indiana. And it's happened to me in Maine. And I'm just like, I don't know how these people are getting in those houses, but I've won the tax lien, and it's now my house. Several times, I offer them a deal, but what I want to charge is a whole lot more than what they're being charged. I mean, the family in Maine was paying $200 a month for rent. You really think that's a real deal? But if I don't want to be a horrible person, but I'm in real estate to make money.
Are they saying the landlords that they had previously, were those the prior owners of the house that didn't pay the taxes? Or is this just somebody else coming in and saying they own the property and renting it out because it was vacant for so long?
Correct. So the homeowner is gone. They abandoned the house at the tax lien. And then somebody else is saying, hey, I own this house. Pay me rent every single month. And I'm like, where's the documentation? I mean, have you checked the county tax records? Have you checked, I don't want to say people can be fooled easily, but dealing with tax liens, people are fooled very easily.
Man.
Yeah, we don't have issues with that. The only issue we have is the government taught people during COVID they don't have to pay their rent. And I got to tell you, delinquencies are through the roof. And then, of course, some municipalities, Texas is pretty good, but it still can take up to 90 days to get a tenant out. And so they're not squatters necessarily, but it's that concept that when you have such a big social program like that, it resets people's psyche, and they just somehow feel that they're not obligated anymore. And it creates problems for us in the multifamily space for sure.
Not only that they don't have to pay rent, but they don't have to work. Like COVID just changed the culture across the board.
Yeah. I'm in the co-living space, renting by the room, and it's affordable housing. It's going to be cheaper than even renting an apartment or a single room or a studio apartment. And
during COVID, if you had real estate in California and people didn't pay their rent, the landlords still have to pay for water and electricity. I know quite a few people who lost their shirts because they weren't making any money and they still had to keep the utilities on. And they're like, they pulled out, real estate investors have pulled out of California because of that.
Yeah. Yep. Our rules here in Colorado are getting more and more like California, and we've got a lot of investors really questioning and just completely stopping investing here. They'll go to a state that's not so heavy-handed, tenant friendly, and we got to find a good balance, right? But because tenants can get taken advantage of, but when investors start feeling that pressure and have no guardrails where they're taking the shorts, they're not going to invest here. And then what happens? There's less inventory. It gets harder to rent. Rents go up. Properties aren't taken care of. I mean, we could get into rent control. that's a whole other conversation. But well, back to this article too. I was going to mention there's a big Facebook group here in Colorado, rent to own, and I'm actually mainly in the rent to own space, and there are so many posts in that rent to own group, and they're obviously scams. Like, just the feed's just full of them, and they're people not even in Colorado with these, rent amounts like $500. You can't rent an apartment for $500 here. It's $1,400 for a studio. It's like, no, that's obviously a scam, but it's just the feed's full. And I actually got shut down in that group. I can't even go in and comment. I was trying to take over that group and so I could police it, and try to warn people and kick these folks out. But it's just a never-ending stream of that, which is why this stuff keeps showing up in the news, So, well, let's go to our next article from our very own United States real estate investor. Trump TPS cutoff deadline triggers Somali fears and housing market risk. So they're talking about ending the temporary protected status, TPS, protections for Somali immigrants, which could disrupt rental demand in specific neighborhoods. That's very localized, right? So
I have a client in Dearborn, Michigan, that this is going to affect him quite a bit. He's got, again, he's doing the BRRRR strategy, and he's got 16 houses that he purposely rents to Somalians, and now he's not sure what's going to happen with that. My mom, I'm first, second, and third generation American, so I understand people coming here to the country trying to start over again. I personally don't know much about the Somalian situation, but in Dearborn, quite a few Somalians are there, and this is how he started his business.
Ooh, yeah, he's on the edge there, isn't he? Man, did you see the big? Not a riot, but like a bunch of people in Minnesota showing up, talking about ICE. Like that's putting investors in a bad spot if all their tenants are prone to being grabbed.
My nephew is a chemistry teacher here in Wade County. ICE came into his high school and took away 3 separate students because they all were here illegally, and the entire student body's like, what the heck, and I don't know. I was in the Peace Corps for 2 years, and I believe people should have a chance to improve their lives. But, these kids were brought to the United States when they were young, and they were put on planes. One was going back to Ecuador, one was going back to India, and I don't know where the third one was going back to, but all their friends are like, this isn't fair. And it was an eye-opening situation. My nephew taught 2 of them in his chemistry class, and he's just like, I can't believe that happened here.
Yeah, it's unfortunate when the kids are victims. But they were legitimately illegal, not just randomly picked up because they had brown skin or something, right? They were actually targeted because they weren't here legally.
Correct. And, being from Phoenix, there's quite a few immigrants there. I don't know whatever happened to, what was the program called that they were trying to do, that they came over as children and they went to college and they have jobs and everything. It must be a scary way to live, because you're trying to do the right thing, but you can't get citizenship. When I was in the Peace Corps in Poland, the second year, they won, I don't know what the lottery was, but so many people can immigrate to the United States, and the paperwork was daunting. I mean, I would spend my entire Friday helping people in my small town of 5,000 people fill out the paperwork. If they didn't have me, they would never have been able to understand it, because it's all in English, and very few of these people, it's legal documents that even Americans would have a hard time understanding. So I can't imagine trying to go through the immigration process here.
Yeah. Oh, Antonio put in the chat the DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program.
Correct. And like how my mom got to the United States, her uncle sponsored her and Trump did away with that, which is kind of interesting because his wife Melania came from Slovenia the same way that my mom came, and now you can't do that anymore. So my great uncle in Cincinnati had to sponsor my mom, had to have a job for her, and had to have a place for her to live, and he had to prove that she was doing that. My mom was a registered nurse, a midwife. She worked in Cincinnati for 6 months. Then she could apply for her green card, and she did get her citizenship before my older brother was born.
Any other comments on that one, Trevor, Jamie?
I stay away from politics. I stay away from politics.
I know.
All I got to say is all the turmoil is not good for anybody.
Yeah.
Not all this drama is just not good. It spooks investors, it spooks homeowners, it spooks everybody. And so anything we could do to reduce drama, then either side is doing their own fair share of drama. And if they would just calm down, we would all be better off.
I just heard the stores where all the demonstrations are happening in Minneapolis are being boycotted. And, these are small business owners. They're not the ones who are doing the ICE situations. So exactly, it's just, it's an ugly beast.
Yeah. It's one thing not to comment on the politics, but we're in it, right? It's all affecting us, so we got to think.
I just tell everybody, go outside and hug somebody. We'll all be happier.
Yep. All right. Let's go to our next article, again from United States real estate investor. Trump declares war on Wall Street housing. This has popped up. The administration is signaling limits on large investors, institutional investors, buying single-family homes. Are you guys staying on top of this? And what do you think about this?
I mean, it's definitely sending some shockwaves. When you have large institutional buyers that change their complete buying patterns and kind of start so a lot of my friends are into build to rent, they're building communities, but whenever a big player comes into a space, it always changes the space. I'm not sure you want to legislate them away from that, but it does create I guess I could say somewhat of an unfair advantage because they have the power, they have the purchasing power, and they block out some of the more entrepreneurial people. Yep. But does that make it right or wrong? That's very debatable. But it's been super hard for small groups to get into the build to rent space. Just super challenging.
I personally, I've wholesaled 28 properties, and I have personally wholesaled to some large conglomerates. So, I mean, when I put something on Facebook Marketplace and say, here's here's my upset bid, or here's my tax lien, if someone contacts me and says, I want to buy it, I don't question, are they an individual investor or are they corporate investing? But it does come out in the paperwork. And, I'm in this, I sound like I'm I want to make money on what I have. And if a corporate investor is the one who's buying my tax lien or my upset, I'm okay selling it to them.
And Sally, do they give you less pushback? Are they a little easier to work with, I'm assuming, since they've got more of the funds and they're not trying to get it for a much lower price than what you're listing it at?
When I post on Facebook Marketplace, they will pay me what I'm asking for. And, my whole goal, my thing is whoever contacts me first, if they say, hey, I'm going to pay that amount, they're my client at that time. If it is a conglomerate, it's a conglomerate. If it is an individual, it's an individual. I'm not picking and choosing, if that makes sense.
And the other side of the coin of what I'm saying too is their money all still comes from investors, right? So we're all investors.
Yep.
But they have different expectations because of the size and the critical mass. So if you're a typical investor with something like Blackstone, you're probably talking an 8 to 14% return. If you're an investor through an independent group, just for us to be able to appeal to them, we're in the 16 to 21% return, and it makes it hard to be competitive. And again, it doesn't mean it's wrong, right? Because they're still using investor money, and people are still making money. But obviously, the large conglomerate is stifling some entrepreneurship, which obviously, a lot of real estate investing was based on. But again, these conglomerates been doing it for years. Who do you think's building all the big office towers in downtown? Who do you think's building all the hotels? So they're already doing it. It's the fact that they've ventured over into the single family space, and there's a lot of pressure because people can't afford to buy a house now. So the focus is there, not because necessarily of what they're doing. It's because we have another problem. Housing is unaffordable. And so it's just a good place to go kick because you're going to get a lot of sympathy from people.
Right. And that's also, not only is it, limiting the entrepreneur that's trying to go out there and be a landlord and buy and increase their personal portfolio, but it's also, just like you said, kind of limiting the ability of the typical consumer of being able to go out and buy an affordable home, right? Because they're all getting bought up so quickly by the conglomerates and the institutional investors. So it's America, right? you got the right to buy it. Unless he rules it, we don't. But I do think it's getting harder for the just average consumer to get out there and buy an affordable home. And we touched on that earlier, that's one of the biggest problems right now.
That was great how you articulated that, guys. That was awesome. Something that when you're talking about this, it's like when you're renting from an institutional landlord versus a mom and pop person that you can call up and be like, hey, as a renter, like something's going on. It can go off the rails. Like we've had this come up in some of our news items before, where these institutional bigger investors are not taking care of the properties, making improvements and taking care of their tenants. So that's a downside. So
that, but we also still have, our slumlord landlords out there too,
sure,
that do the same. So it's property by property.
Yeah, good point. Yep. Yeah. I've been thinking about this a lot too, being in the rent to own space. BlackRock, not to be confused with Blackstone, was behind one of the big rent to own companies, Home Partners of America. They were, I think, the biggest rent to own company, and they were going crazy, buying a lot of homes. And the thing I do love about rent to own, even if it's an institutional company behind it, is we're actually helping people become homeowners eventually, right? If it's done right. A lot of rent to own deals weren't working out, apparently with Home Partners, for reasons I don't need to get into. But they pulled out of the market at the beginning of 2025. Same with Divvy, another big rent-to-own company. That leaves some opportunity. So I'm trying to think, like, how can I step in? Thinking about building a team of people nationwide. But also I have hesitation, like, hey, this big company got in and now they pulled out completely. They didn't even, like, they had kind of backed off in some markets, and it made me go, oh, maybe they know something I don't, right?
And anytime you try to regulate entrepreneurship, there's winners and losers on either side, right? So to regulate it and say, well, these guys can't do it because they're big, but Sally can do it because she's small. Anytime you regulate it, you're going to get a winner and loser on either side. So again, I'm a less regulation is better and just let free enterprise win. And at the end of the day, free enterprise normally is also good for the consumer, because you're buying a house, you're making sure you have an affordable rent so it stays full, all of those things. If everybody is good stewards and good conductors and runs less regulation, I think is always better.
Yeah, it's self-leveling. You hope. Any other comments? All right, let's go to Fox 19 Cincinnati. Feds charge Cincinnati Real Estate Investment Group after $50 million bank fraud scheme. Prosecutors allege a real estate group double pledged properties, falsifying documents, and diverted loan proceeds. Do any of you guys, can you comment and explain what double pledged properties is?
My parents were kind of involved in this. My mom was 8 months pregnant with me, and they were living in Phoenix, and they went up to Montezuma Lake, and my mom got the giggles because the people who were selling it were mafia. So my dad made sure he got the actual title for it. They found out later, this was, I want to say 1974, the mafia blew up the reporter who reported on this, that they resold these parcels of land so many times. My dad had the original paperwork, and when they had retired, I think it was 1998, they sold their parcel of land to the people who had the parcel next to them. But I mean, it was huge, a huge story back in the 70s about how they went after the reporter, blew up a car in the middle of the city street because he was reporting how the mafia was cheating people. So to hear they were doing this in Cincinnati now in 2015, again, going back to what Jamie had said, make sure you do your due diligence and make sure you know what you're getting into.
Yeah, that's crazy. When I read this article, I was like, how in the world do they close on a refinance and they're not paying off the underlying mortgage? So that's, I think, what this one is mostly is they're getting the new mortgages on a refi and not paying that underlying one off. And then I read a little bit further into it, and I think they had some people that were within the title companies, right? Because that's normally who writes the check to or sends the wire to pay the underlying mortgage. And they had people in the title companies that were involved in the fraud. And then I was like, oh, now it all makes sense. And again, you can't trust anybody. It's crazy out there. Greed will win every day.
Wow.
And again, sadly, there's bad actors everywhere, right? And this is clearly fraud, right? Because you normally can't put a mortgage on a property without a clear title. So clearly they had to have somebody manipulating documents to be able to get it. I watched a thing once, a guy did that with boats. He ended up buying boats, and boats apparently aren't collateralized. I don't know why. And he put 3 loans on boats and then paid none of them. And when they went to repossess it, there were three loans on it. It's just, again, bad actors will do bad things.
One of the things I got involved in real estate was my mentor, when the whole housing meltdown, Bank of America had to buy, what was the company called? The mortgage company, and all the titles were all messed up. I actually got a house in Idaho that I could prove to the bank that they owned the property. The husband and wife were divorced. The husband's in Japan with the military. The wife's remarried in San Diego. I got them to sign affidavits. I'm giving it to the bank, and the bank's like, "We don't own this property." And I'm like, "Yes, here's a muddled title. You own the property." They go into the house in Coeur d'Alene. They found out there's a hole in the roof. Coeur d'Alene gets lots of snow. It's all ruined, the carpeting, everything else. The bank's like, "We've had this house for 14 years. I'm like, "Yes, you have. I don't know how you screwed this up." The bank sells it to me for $7,000, bank-owned property. I put it up to sell it. Whole fix and flipper bought the house from me for $130,000, and then he resold the house for over $400,000. So it was a win-win-win for everybody. But there's so much confusion when you have to have a clear title and you have to do the research on your titles. I mean, it probably took me a good 4 months to get the affidavit signed, get everybody situated on this, but I made money. I mean, that's always important to me.
Do you think blockchain is going to help once we get all of these transactions and everything in the blockchain?
Correct. But most of these, what was the company's name? Good Homes, the mortgage company. Most of them have been taken care of since then. When I came here to North Carolina, this upset bid is an easy thing to work with.
Gotcha. Well, hey, let's take another break and hear from our next partner.
Are you looking to elevate your business through exceptional content? Universe Media Publishing is your gateway to success. We understand that in the world of business, content is king, but not just any content. Your business deserves content that captivates, convinces, and converts your audience into clients. At Universe Media Publishing, we specialize in crafting SEO-rich web content, persuasive copywriting, and marketing copy that resonates with your audience. We don't just write, we engage, we connect, and we deliver results. Imagine your brand's voice amplified, your message crystal clear, and your presence dominating the digital landscape. That's the power of partnering with Universe Media Publishing. Don't let your business just blend in. Stand out, be heard, and make an impact. Connect with us at Universe Media Publishing, and let's turn your vision into reality. Visit universemediapublishing.com today. Your story, our expertise, together, we'll create magic.
Okay, back to the show from nyc.gov. Mamdani administration announces historic $2.1 million settlement to address hazardous conditions and tenant harassment across 14 buildings. New York City fined a landlord group $2.1 million and forced repairs. Oh, that's repeated. Thanks, AI. We already know that from the title. Anyway.
So my only thought is obviously landlords that harass people is unacceptable, right?
Yeah.
Slum landlords making things, not livable for people. People deserve clean, safe housing. But I do wonder with Mandavi doing this, if this just isn't political grandstanding to say that he's out for the citizens of New York. That's the only thing that worries me about this. Slum landlords, I don't like them, but is this a political grandstand so he can say he's fulfilling his mandate?
Even with that, though, I still think, yes, probably so, but I still think it's a good thing, and it kind of sets an example because, I mean, I've got several clients, unfortunately, that are in this investment group that's out of Dallas, and you see the same thing. Like if you look up this investment fund, you see that they're a horrible investment company, one, but then you see all of the tenants blasting them for coming in and buying all these big units and then not fixing them up like they promised that they were going to do. So not only do they have the vacancy that causes the issues with, investors losing all of their money and not getting paid back, but you also have all of the tenants that are getting screwed on this deal as well, because they're just, I'll use the word slumlord again. Not that they're even local to that area, but they're just not dealing with tenant concerns and fixing it up to where it is, not even nice, but safe for these tenants to live in that are paying their rent.
Yeah.
Personally, I moved to Massachusetts to work for Monster.com, and I got a condo in a building that was built before the Civil War. And they didn't tell us that the water was all contaminated by foster grants. When you move in, I took a bath, and my outline was all done in red, yellow stuff from the water. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. I had to find out from somebody at the supermarket that everybody in the town of Leominster was using bottled water. Like, I wasn't told when I bought this condo that try to do a fraud situation on my real estate agent because I thought she should have told me this. She goes, it's not it wasn't necessary to do. And I'm like, I would have thought very hard about buying this. I love the condo, but to know that the water was poisonous, that's a little bit scary.
So your realtor knew about that?
I'm sorry?
Your realtor knew about that?
Correct. I mean, all my everything I cooked with, everything I drank, I made sure I had bottled water. Collagens, made sure it was that done correctly. When I sold my condo, I made sure it was in the paperwork that they knew what was going on there. Again, this building was a historic building. There was lead paint. There was, they told us all that, but I think knowing that the water system was poison, that should have been released.
So poisonous water is not a mandatory disclosure, apparently.
Correct. That's what I found out, and I'm like, it would have changed things.
Oh. Yeah, that's not good. Well, let's go to our next article from Real Estate News. Zillow hit with another lawsuit over allegations of steering. A class action lawsuit claims that they pressured agents to steering. It's a term we have in the industry. Steering clients towards their mortgage division. I've seen some stuff. I'm kind of keeping tabs on this, like where they're being pretty heavy-handed. They've got a lot of power. So they're trying to get people to use their lender, and I keep seeing kind of like behind-the-scenes reports where people are like, yeah, they're not publicly saying this stuff, but they're playing with fire. So interesting to see how this plays out.
Are they paying referral fees to the agents, or how are they steering them toward it?
I'm not sure the details of how they're doing.
Yeah.
They can't pay referrals.
It says preferred agents are being charged up to 40% of their commission.
There's two separate things. The 40% they're talking about when an agent gets a lead from Zillow, but the mortgage arm is separate, but they're kind of pressuring them like, hey, we might not be sending you these leads, which they're paying dearly for. 40% is a lot of money, but they're like, oh, we might not send these leads to you to go take care of this client if you don't send that buyer client over to our lending arm. That's steering, and that's not good. So Zillow's under the gun.
I think it's going to come down to a monopoly rule where Zillow is going to be shown that they're so powerful. I'm not a realtor, so I really don't know much about the situation, but when I put my parents' house on the real estate agent I use for my parents' house, they put it on Zillow first before they put it anyplace else. I'm like, okay, if it helps, it helps.
Yeah. I guess the question is like, where's the line between integration, like being vertically integrated? Sure, go for it. Like it's smart business, but when you're steering, that's where these RESPA violations and things start rearing their head. We got to be very cautious and ethical about how we are helping these clients, so I'm sure we're going to continue to see this pop up in the news until they get it all figured out. So anything else on that one? Okay, let's go to the next one from New York Post. Golden State's housing crisis laid bare as skyrocketing prices forced Californians to flee in record numbers. It was, what was it? It just says hundreds of thousands of residents are leaving annually. Trevor, you mentioned this earlier, and most are citing because of housing costs. So
It Housing in California is 58% higher than the national average. That's pretty big. You have to have a big wage disparity to be able to do that. And it also says that between 20 and 25, the bottom tier payment for houses, and this goes along with what I said before, the interest rate tied with the value jumped 78%. I mean, that's staggering.
Well, and it's been like that for years. I lived out in San Diego with my ex-husband who was military in 2002, and we had a little bitty apartment close to, I mean, it was basically North Tijuana, and it was 600 square feet. And back then we paid, I think it was 14 or 1600 in rent for a 600 square foot apartment. It was crazy. And then we moved to, middle of nowhere, California by Fresno, and bought a 1200 square foot home for 200,000, and then the market, crashed, and it was worth about 120,000 2 years later, and that kind of forced us into being investors because that was the first home we bought, and then we had to put it up as a rental because we lost half our equity. Or our mortgage was $80,000 more than the home was worth. So I mean that's been an issue for 25, 30 years now, and obviously it's not changing.
Yeah, it was saying that 30% of listings are priced above $1 million in California. Yeah.
Well, living in Phoenix, a whole lot of people from California were selling their houses for so much more, and then coming to Phoenix like, wow, I could buy this house for $300,000. And, it's kind of interesting. There's a fantastic restaurant in Phoenix called Macayo's. It's a Mexican restaurant. And the waitress was telling me in California, they got paid minimum wage. And in Phoenix, they get paid, I don't know how much, but if a waitress, they get paid less. And she's just like, I was making so much more money in California. I'm like, that's why things are so expensive there. And didn't they just pass that the minimum wage in California is now $15 an hour? I mean, housing, going back to the fires and Palisades and every place else. One of my clients, they lost their personal home and 3 of their Burr strategy houses. Their insurance company is willing to pay them to rebuild on the location they're supposed to be at, but they haven't gotten permission in more than a year to rebuild their personal house or the 3 Burr strategies they had. And they're right now living in Orange County at the house she grew up in with her mom and dad. And they're just like, our hands are tied until legislation allows us to rebuild. And, a year waiting, that's an awful long time.
So the insurance company said, yes, go for it, but they're tied up with a governmental hang up or something?
Correct. They got on their personal home, she's telling me they got 10%, to replace their toothbrushes, toothpaste, and hairbrushes and everything. Thank God they got out. They got out. They're safe, and they had all their paperwork. But it's a large insurance company that advertises on TV, and they say we won't release the money until you rebuild at the location where you lost your houses. Well, the state of California hasn't released those locations yet, so they can start rebuilding. And they have mortgages on their 3 Burr properties. They still have to pay, and their kids, the entire neighborhood is decimated. Their kids are going to a new school, in Orange County and everything else, and it's just the legal paperwork and the legal needs of everything that's happening. Just because of the fires in California a year ago, that hasn't been resolved yet. And to think about how many people are leaving California because it's just so expensive. And again, what happened during COVID, where landlords still had to pay utilities if they weren't getting paid. It's just not a win-win situation for investors, I don't think.
Yeah. Hey, I was going to ask you, Sally, you were talking about doing the seller finance was it North Carolina?
Correct.
Yeah.
The fires, I want to say they happened, January 10th or something? I don't remember the date, but 9,000 homes were destroyed, and I think only less than 5% are being rebuilt right now a year later. I mean, that's a horrendous number.
Yeah. No, I was asking, you had done some seller finance deals where you're getting 20 grand down. What kind of purchase prices were you at there? were they $200,000 homes, or like I'm trying to compare that to California.
Correct. I have several clients who have taken HELOCs out of their $1.7 million homes that they bought back in, let's say, the 80s or something, and that they're using the money to do some investing and things like that. But they keep telling me, if I couldn't afford a house now if I moved to California, but they've been there for more than 15, 20 years. My brother went to University of San Diego. They loved San Diego. And when the whole housing market collapse happened in 2008, they bought their house with a jumbo loan. So it was at least $650,000, and they were only able to sell it for $180,000. And he's just like, I'll file that paperwork for 10 years, because he's like, he was a Secret Service agent. They had to move, just like you did with Jamie, with your husband. I mean, the market there fluctuates so much.
Yep. Well, let's go to our next article from CNBC. Homebuyers are backing out of deals at the fastest pace in nearly a decade. Contract cancellations hit a near record as buyers have gotten cautious. I've definitely seen that here in Denver. Talking to title companies, boy, it was 40% of them, I think I heard, were falling out of contract. I mean, what a nightmare.
It kind of goes back to what I was saying before, right? If you create a climate of uncertainty, of fear, of the sky is falling, again, right and left are both doing it, people become very nervous. And when you become very nervous, a large commitment as to buying a home or doing anything like that, it just becomes overwhelming, because you're listening to all of the noise, and the noise is completely overwhelming anything that I want to say does rational thinking. So again, I think it's just all of the upheaval and tension that people feel with all the right and the left fighting.
Do you think there's anything's going to change anytime soon?
I wish. If hope would change it, we'd be there, but I don't think hope's going to change it.
Yeah.
I sent this article to a friend of mine who she works with mortgage brokers, and she does all the paperwork. And she says, I do all this paperwork for people. And she says it's over 60% of her people are backing out because uncertainty, the price of the home. If you open up MSN and read the top 10 articles, all the companies, who was it? UPS just laid off 160,000 people. I mean, there is a lot of angst right now. And I think people are nervous because are we going to have a trade war with Europe over Greenland? Are we going to have a trade war with Asia? Are we going to, people just don't know what's going to happen. And until they feel more comfortable, that's when things will get better. But I think that article has lower numbers than are actually happening, at least according to my friend Linda, who deals with doing all the mortgage paperwork for California, Colorado, Arizona, Oregon, and Washington State. 80% of the people back out. That's a huge number.
Yeah. One question is, like, if you're a seller, how do you make sure the deal doesn't fall apart, or at least, do something to so it's less likely to fall apart? And one thing that I always recommend, especially when somebody's selling a property that's older, is to get a pre-inspection. Yeah, you got to come out of pocket, might be $600 or something, but then what is wrong with your own property. Usually you do know, but stuff comes up. We're not all electricians and plumbers and HVAC people, so it's good to just know what you've got coming down the line before the buyer goes and gets an inspection and then goes, ha, take a bath on this because we got all these inspection items, right? So
Speaking of inspections, have you guys seen inspectors' reports getting longer and longer and longer? I don't know if that's because of AI is helping with that or the systems that they're using, but that seems to be a big thing that I've personally seen with some of our investments is you get the inspection, and whether we're on the buy or sell side, and they're so long now. And I mean, some things are continuously repetitive, right? They hit on the same thing over and over, just in a different section. But that can be kind of daunting, especially to new home buyers too. If they get a 60-page inspection, and even though things are very, very minor, they're thinking all these things are wrong with the home, and that's building the scare tactic in them and the backing out, I would think.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. You see that report, and any reasonable person would be like, no, I got to get out of this. Like that, as a realtor, that's my job, to kind of go through that with them and say, oh, this is, here in Colorado, radon is a big thing. Pretty much every home has a radon system. And if it doesn't, it's probably going to come up. And, the level of radon is real low. So, but it's not the end of the world. You get a radon system, it might be $800 or $1,200, maybe more, depending on how you got to route things, but it's not the end of the world. So. Go ahead, Sarah.
With me doing seller financing houses now, I purposely give them a year warranty on the house. But like Jamie said, buyer beware. Get the inspection done. Find out, does a roof need to be fixed? When I put up my seller financing, I say as is. This, buyer beware, because I'm not fixing anything. This is on you. Hopefully you'll be the homeowner after 2 years, or you can leave. It's your decision.
Yep, that's smart. We got into a deal where we converted a regular rental into a rent to own, and it wasn't how we normally do it and buy on market, where we're getting an inspection. And so some things have come up, including a roof that needs to be replaced. It's not a good situation. If we'd had an inspection, we would have been in a much better place. And like in your situation, Sally, probably a good CYA for you and that buyer to have that inspection, so you're both fully aware of what's going on. So yeah, and that home warranty, that's another good one I always suggest as well.
One of my seller subject to deals, the family was being moved from the Charlotte area to Houston by their company. They hired a real estate agent, and he gave them 19 things to fix to make it after repair value. No offense to the family, they were living paycheck to paycheck, keeping up with the Joneses, and they're like, we can't afford this. So when I told them I was going to do subject to, they were going to get corporate housing for 3 months down in Houston, and then to find their own house. I took over their mortgage in June of 2024, paid for the electricity, paid for the wire. My real estate agent who gave me the pre-foreclosure list, she did an open house. I gave the 3 neighbors on every side, 3 neighbors in the back, and 3 neighbors across the street. Here's what the real estate agent says. This house is $100,000 less than any other house in the neighborhood because there's problems here. We had the open house. The family who came in knew what the real estate agent said was wrong with the house. The wife's like, it smells like dog here. I'm like, yes, the dog peed on the carpeting. We know the carpeting has to be repaired, but you're getting this house $100,000 less than any other house in this neighborhood. And it's great. It's a great school district.
Yeah. Interesting. We've got a party going on in the background there. Let's see. We got to Jamie's got a hard stop here. Let's see. Well, we're to our last fun news item. So just real quick, from Upworthy, Gen Z is the first generation less cognitively capable than their parents. But Denmark has a solution. So they're removing digital devices from their schools, and they're actually getting good results. So Sure, that's tough
Yeah,
to.
I've seen that. I've got 4 kids, and 2 are in high school now, one's in college. And I mean, they use technology for everything and AI now. I mean, the cheating is ridiculous. They use AI for everything now, and it's just crazy. And that we're getting dumber as a society. It's true.
But are we getting dumber or are we getting smarter? Because you have so much more resources now. I mean,
You do, but
about
so
it.
much of it, I mean, can you, there's so many things out there that's not the truth, right? So you think that you're spreading information that's true, and it's just not, and it's so widely spread, and then everybody's like, oh, this is fact, and it's not, and we're losing the ability to critically think, right? Because our first go-to was, well, let me type this into Google or ChatGPT and see what the answer is, and we're not critically thinking anymore.
Yeah. We don't have to rely on our memory.
My nephew, who's a chemistry teacher, he had 2 weeks off at Christmas, and he had his students write. They could choose anything to write about, and he actually Chat GPT their answers, and more than half of them took straight from Chat GPT into the papers they wrote. And he's just like, no, this is not your own work. I mean, if that's happening in high school in 2020, 2025, I think it's happening everywhere.
Yeah. I use it all the time. Obviously, I was trying to use it to summarize some of these, and I was failing, but I was trying to save time, like scrambling. But yeah, it's a problem. Well,
I use ChatGPT for my business. I download a list of 50, like I did for mechanics making $100,000 gross per year, and I send postcards to them. And I've got 4 clients from that. You know, I'm using ChatGPT for my own business, so I can't complain that other people are using ChatGPT in school and other things. But it's a wild new world out there.
Yep.
That and everybody, again, just kind of thinking it's true, right? So I've got in the accounting and tax world, you know, clients will come to me and say, oh, I heard this, and social media in general, right? Like there's so much false information out there, or little snippets of things being taken, and we get questions all the time based on, oh, they'll send the Chat GPT, you know, thing of whatever their question was, and I'm like, no, that's not accurate, or that's not actually what the real regulation or the law is. So you really have to, you got to nip that one in the bud a little bit, and it's hard.
Yeah. Well, that covers the news portion of the show, guys. I'd like to thank our sponsors, United States Real Estate Investor Advertising, Real Expert Talks, and Universe Media Publishing. And thanks to our guests. You guys have been awesome. Sally Gimmon, right? Jamie Finnan Gratzer and Kate Trevor Thompson. Why don't you guys let people know how they can connect with you? We could start with Jamie in case you have to jump off.
Yeah. So we have a website, www.theoptimalfinancialgroup.com. My email is jamie@theoptimalfinancialgroup.com. And our telephone number in the office is 281-288-9982. You can email or call, and we'll send you a Calendly link, and we do a free 15-minute consultation to give some free advice to you based on where you're at in your business and what you've got going on in real estate investing. And that'll be free for anybody that joined this call today. Just put in the info that you were on the podcast.
Fantastic. Sally.
Thank you for having me, James. In April 4th, 2020, I got a $94,000 tax bill because my tax bracket went from 22% to 24%. So I researched how to save capital gains. I now work for a private law firm that offers a beneficial trust where you don't have to pay capital gains, interest income taxes, dividend income taxes, rental income taxes, and royalty income taxes legally with the Spendthrift Trust. It's an IRS tax code 643B. You go out to www.sallygimmon.com. It's the Great Discovery. Sign up for to be a free learner, and I have a free class there. Save U.S. taxes. You're going to get a presentation, articles from Forbes magazine. I did not write. 2 pages of case law so you can research this to your heart's content, and examples of my clients saving thousands of dollars. Learn from my $94,000 tax bill and 5 months of research so you too can save taxes. Thanks for having me, James.
Thank you. Trevor.
Yeah, thanks for having me, James. So best way to reach out to me is to go on LinkedIn. You got to remember the K. Keith is my legal name. I don't use it. K. Trevor Thompson. And I love helping people learn how you can passively invest in commercial real estate. So reach out to me on LinkedIn. Love to talk to you.
Fantastic. Thanks, guys. Again, I'm your host, James Brown. Feel free to connect with me by going to Linktree/partner with James Brown. And if you want help on your investing journey, book time with me to see how we can work together. Again, Linktree/partner with James Brown, or you can go to jamesbrownrealestate.com/coaching. Also, huge thanks to our founder and producer, Antonio Holman with United States Real Estate Investor. Follow and subscribe to This Month in Real Estate Investing at thismonthinrealestateinvesting.com or your favorite podcast app. And if you run across any interesting news, events, or have suggestions for expert guests like we had today, feel free to share by emailing Antonio at UnitedStatesRealEstateInvestor.com. And remember, when one door closes, another door opens to financial freedom. See you next month.